More about this criminal defense attorney, Lexie Rigden. Thank you for your time. So the argument being made here by the defense is that genetic genealogy is not a perfect science. Are they grasping at straws here, or is that a smart legal strategy?
I think in a way they're grasping at straws because first off, they have done an actual cheek swab of the DNA. And then they also have a lot of other evidence against him to support their affidavit of probable cause, the cell phone evidence, the car that was identified, and an eyewitness who sort of described the physical appearance of who was there. So to me, this speaks to them kind of leaving no stone unturned. Maybe they're going to be going the route of trying to suppress the evidence, trying to dismiss the case. I mean, I think that they are probably grasping at straws and nothing is really going to come of this. And there have been cases where defense attorneys have requested this information in terms of the genetic genealogy and it wasn't turned over, because just because you want something to be turned over is not the legal standard for it being turned over. So I think a lot of options for the defense is on the table, assuming that they can actually get this evidence.
Right. They're going to try anything they can. The other thing that caught my attention, they're arguing that the gathering of DNA evidence was unconstitutional in this case. How so?
Well, this is very novel. The genetic genealogy, I mean, even the expert in this affidavit has only been doing it for about 9 years, which is really a pretty short period of time in terms of experts. It just shows you how this is just emerging, and there isn't a ton of case law about using this. And as the other person who was in the report said, fruit of the poisonous tree, that means that the defense can seek to suppress evidence that should not have ultimately been obtained. And so whether it was obtained properly and constitutionally is going to be a question for the defense.
Yeah, their focus is on the data and also the methods used by investigators. What about his alibi for the night of the murders? His defense is now claiming that it was a habit of his to drive around late at night and that he was doing that the night and early morning into the next day when the murders happened. Will that hold?
Well, it's probably very unlikely he's going to testify, and arguably a jury who sits on this case is not supposed to necessarily know that. I mean, they might end up introducing it, but this was information that was produced in terms of motion practice. So I think it's very strange. It's not really an alibi. I think that they're giving the prosecution enough so that the judge doesn't come down on them and say, you didn't give us enough information and the prosecution wasn't prepared for what this alibi was. But it's not really an alibi. It's more of an excuse. But I think that it's actually kind of harmful because it's actually them admitting that he was driving around that night.
Exactly, right? I mean, he could have done it, and you've got cell phone data that shows his phone was turned off several times during the night and his car was near the crime. Given all of that, that will be the prosecution's case, right? In the eyes of the jury, all of these things, but beyond a reasonable doubt, is that going to be their issue?
Well, that's always the issue, and that's the legal burden that they have to overcome. But as we sit here today, we obviously do not know all of what's going on. We don't have the inside baseball about what's going on behind the scenes. But when you take the alibi, which I have to say in quotes because it says it's not really an alibi, where they're actually admitting on his behalf, yes, I was driving around. And by the way, if he tells them, yes, I was driving around, they can't lie to the court and say otherwise. You know, even though he's not speaking, they are officers of the court, and so he is speaking through them. And so you have that, you have the cell phone evidence, you have the car, you have eyewitness evidence, which will no doubt be attacked based for various reasons, and then importantly, you have the DNA evidence. So I think this is going to be a very hard case for the defense, and I think that that's why they're trying to put up as many legal roadblocks as possible.
Finally, I want to get your thoughts on the Gilgo Beach murder case. The suspect's family is now going to be speaking out. By all accounts, they have cooperated with police and had no understanding of the double life that he is accused of living. Is it smart for them, though, to get in front of this, to have their own attorneys? If you were advising them, what would you say do?
The wife has already filed for divorce from him. So I don't think we have a scenario where the family is supporting him. I think we have a scenario where the family is incredibly hurt, shocked, and has been through the ringer themselves. And so in that context, if you're not supporting him, then yes, I would get out and speak about it, because I believe one of her hairs might have been found at a crime scene. And so to the extent that there's anybody out there online or out there in the community saying maybe she had something to do with it, if I were her, I'd want to get out there and say, I have nothing to do with this. I don't support him. And so I completely understand why they're doing what they're doing today.
All right. I always appreciate your perspective. Lexie Rigden, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.